AI is a tool that allows you to do what you do in a more remarkable way.
So do you think people have a blind spot in recognizing the benefits that these tools bring just because we're all so busy?
People are experts in their problems. They're not experts in the solutions to their problems.
So AI isn't about doing everything all at once. It's about starting small and learning from experience.
AI is about restraint. It would infinitely hallucinate content if we allowed it to.
So I'm not sure if I've met a proper digital nomad before. I might have done, I don't know. But you would call yourself a digital nomad?
Full-time digital nomad. I think up until July this year, I'd spent 3 hours in total in the UK. And that was a switch over at Gatwick. So yeah, definitely
so
digital.
not really in the
not
UK.
Really, not
in
really.
transit. So this is the longest day you've had in that you've had a day or something here, is it?
This I've had to come back for a month for work. That's usually what draws me back. Try and be out there in the better weather on the beach somewhere else.
So where are you off to next?
Turkey. So off to Bodrum for 3 months.
Right. Just after the hottest bit, hopefully a bit more comfortable weather.
A bit more comfortable.
Away from the tourists.
A bit less touristy, but still pretty hot till November. So it should be good.
Do you find the Wi-Fi everywhere is good enough for it to get online calls and stuff done?
The worst thing I find is power cuts.
Ah, right. It's power, not internet.
It's power, not internet. Internet generally around the world is pretty fast. But it is how reliable is your power supply, and does that place that you have a battery backup? Because if that goes down, you are
goosed.
Yeah, you're goosed. And I've been looking a lot at the Starlink Mini because I'm like, I can fit it in a backpack.
Put it anywhere, yeah.
But a lot of the countries that I like to travel to have massive internet control, so that won't work.
Oh, I see. It won't
It's switched off in Turkey. Yeah, you can.
And do you meet loads of other digital nomads on your nomadic travels?
I do, although I tend to stay away from the truly digital nomad like hotspots, right. Bali and places like that. I struggle with the influencers. I like the techie nomads.
Just getting on with their work.
Those of us who are sat taking up a corner seat in a coffee shop somewhere with their headphones on, not talking to anyone.
You must drink a lot of coffee, more than normal.
I am a coffee dude. Yeah, I've really got into enjoying a French press recently.
Oh,
I've maybe this is a sign of maturing years, right? But I just really like that ritual.
I love a little stovetop, those little octagonal Italian ones.
Yeah, they're absolutely incredible.
Right, well, I've enough of that. We better start a podcast.
Can't wait.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the SME Growth Podcast from Wellmeadow. We are on episode 136, would you believe it? They seem to just tick by. And Rich is on holiday again. I know, I'll put the complaints in before you get there, but he is back tomorrow. So while he's away, the mice are playing and I've got a guest in the studio. Hi, Lee.
Hey, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. And as we said in the intro, Digital Nomad happens to have landed here in Shrewsbury for long enough for me to grab you for a podcast.
Cannot wait. First time in Shrewsbury, beautiful place.
It is a beautiful place.
Nice to see some history, some Tudor buildings.
Lots of Tudor buildings, a castle. There's probably a battle here that I should know more about than I do.
I'm sure many.
I'm going to have to get that off Pat soon and learn a bit more about Shrewsbury's history. But it's definitely Shrewsbury. I like the way you said that, not Shrewsbury. As they say.
Is there a difference?
Oh, yeah. The locals get very upset. So what we normally do is just quickly run through what the last 3 episodes were for any heathen listeners that haven't listened before or newcomers to the podcast. So just tell them what they are. And then we'll tell everybody who you are and what we're here to talk about. All right. Amazing. So like I say, episode 136 today. So last week we had Steve Brown on the podcast as a guest, and he had produced a book, which he said he wasn't going to publish, but we did wave it in front of the cameras if you were watching. But he was very keen to share his experiences of setting up a business from his own point of view. 30 years plus of experience. I hope he doesn't mind me saying that. So he's giving something back, and he had some good stories to tell about the ups and downs of his career and how he nearly gave it all up but carried on and all that stuff. So some good lessons from Steve last week. Now the week before, Rich and I did an episode, this is 134, which I can't believe it took us over 130 episodes to get to, and it was called Finance for Non-Financial Managers. There must be a million books written about that and blogs and God knows what, but we thought we'd do a podcast on it. And actually, I've had a finance director ring us up and compliment on it. So how about that? That's pretty good feedback. And the one before that will definitely appeal to Lee. We were talking about it a bit just before we started recording, and that was vibe coding in episode 133.
A big trend.
And we're taking that to some limits, and it's great. We're really enjoying it, and it's actually the problem is getting back to the day job because it's drawing you, taking up more and more of your time. Like this big shiny new toy. It is good fun. Suddenly, it's like someone, whatever, you want to be an astronaut or whatever, someone suddenly gives you access to be this thing that you thought, that would be really useful.
I had this exact experience a little bit before vibe coding because I was a user experience designer working in really big tech companies. And I would forever look at our competitors' products and say, can we do something like this? And I'd get the technical red card, I used to call it, from the developers. No, because it's difficult, it's long. I'd be like, everyone else has done it, surely we can.
Yeah.
And I went on this journey of learning to code. And then I found visual development, which is development that works like you work as a designer. And I had this magical moment. It was a really stupid program I wrote that just looked up the value of my current Tesla shares. This was back in 2018. Really silly little program.
Shares?
I've still got the shares.
You've done well there.
And once you create something like that, it is addictive. You have a light bulb moment of, oh my God, if I can think it, I can probably battle through and make it happen.
Yeah, I had that experience with 3D printers when they first came out.
Well,
I had a couple in the garage just churning away. They were brilliant. Just I could think of stuff and it appeared physically.
I'm very jealous because of the way I live. I can't have hobbies like that. But like I watch 3D printing videos. I watch people printing their own PCB boards. I'm like, I can't wait to settle down there. Like I will have a shed.
Yeah, I think maybe you could never settle down. You've got too drunk on the freedom that it gives you. So how do I know Lee? Give you a quick introduction. Your company is Minimum Viable Launch.
Yep.
And we've seen each other online. I think partially because we've got an interest in AI, as you know, and we're doing lots of stuff. You're writing about it. That's what your business is there doing. So we just exchanged a few messages, and here, before you know it, you're on a podcast. So tell me just a little bit then about what you do in your professional capacity while you're digitally nomading around the place.
Yeah, we help companies build new products, services, or new internal processes that solve their customers' what we call burning hair problems in more remarkable ways. Those are primarily AI-driven experiences, and we work with companies who don't consider themselves tech companies. They are service-based companies, consultants. They work in...
You mean normal companies?
Normal companies.
And what sort of size of companies are you dealing with?
They usually range between 5 to 50 employees.
Okay, so they're not big companies then?
They're not super big. We find the super giant companies... Like we've worked with Octopus Energy, right? It is our biggest customer. Yeah. That is a very different ball game than companies that have, the owner-operator, that the founder's still at the helm. They've got a big vision. They've got enough capacity to execute on it. Yeah. We absolutely love working with those because they say go, and we can drive them very, very fast. I think I'm psychologically not well suited to super large companies because the bureaucracy layer, the HR department, locking down the innovation. I'm like, let's break stuff. And they're like, no, we have a good thing here.
We've got lots of customers.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so I think this is probably where we picked up on what you're talking about, what you're doing, because you seem to specialize in this SME space. And you've got a bit of a cause that's aligned with ours, which is, whilst not trying to break anything, we are trying to make everybody in ordinary businesses that we just talked about be aware that this is available. It's accessible to them, right? They could do stuff.
It is. And I think the beautiful thing that's happened with AI is that there has been a moment in the minds of many, I think British businesses, our American customers usually are much more tech-focused, tech-forward, but especially in the UK, they have suddenly got this idea that AI can do anything. Yeah. And they can dream, and they come to us with the dream, and we say, you know what, we don't even need AI for this. Yeah. This has been possible for a long time, but let's look at the idea, how can we use technology to
So actually AI has almost acted like a key in that sense of unlocking other things. It doesn't need to be an AI application, but it's allowed people to think better, bigger.
AI is a tool, and I think we will experience a bubble popping, a hype bubble popping around AI. And those products that will fail, or those new services that will fail, will be the ones that use AI as the core of its service for the sake of AI. The only job you have as an entrepreneur in business is find a painful problem that someone's willing to pay to have solved and solve it. If your AI enables you to do that better, great. If it is just a fancy AI tool because you were thinking that you were behind,
then you're selling the hype. And back to the Gartner hype cycle, which was another one of our podcasts, the trough of disillusionment.
Yes, I'm always talking about the trough of and I think we are probably tipping ever so slightly with the release of GPT-5.
Yeah.
And people going, actually, Sam Altman was asking for $1 trillion to build nuclear power plants, to build data centers. Should we be? Like, I think the conversation is switching. The trend of disruption with AI will quietly march on through that hype cycle up and down. But that's what we get businesses to direct their attention to is AI is a tool that allows you to do what you do in a more remarkable way.
And for once, you don't have to be in the leading edge of creating the tool, right? There are going to be some very rich companies out there, like OpenAI and all the other lot that are going to do very well. But the relevance to our world, to these SMEs, is that actually it's learning how to use this new tool well in a normal environment. It's remarkably low cost. It doesn't have to be as risky as some of the more scaremongery sort of chats about it all needs to be. It's not going to take over the world or kill people just yet anyway. So certainly in a business environment, we're just talking about a common sense tool, just like maybe when spreadsheets first came out or just mainframes, PCs. And this is just another one of those steps that enables new things to happen.
It is a tool that you will use. We call AI an accelerant. It won't replace you. It will accelerate you, and it will make those who do financial analysis do more deeper financial analysis more quickly, and you will outpace those people who don't have that training. I think, yes, there is a lot of fear about AI taking over the world and destroying all jobs. I don't see that coming true, at least in the short term. Predicting the future is a silly game because inevitably you always are wrong. It's hard to predict the trend while you're in it, but certainly from working very closely with AI, we don't go into a company and get them to get rid of their department. Our question fundamentally is, who are your best people? What are they doing when they are most impactful? What gets in the way of them doing that impactful work? Let's automate that with AI.
So get the rubbish out of the way and let them do more of what they're good at.
Yeah, exactly.
So you work with a lot of SMEs in particular. What would you say is the current state of adoption generally across the board from the perspective you have?
We did a presentation to 40 businesses 2 weeks ago where we took a short poll of hands. Who's used ChatGPT? Who's got a Claude account for personal productivity? 40 out of 40, every single person. I think in the world of entrepreneurship, the world of business, actually adoption is very good on those kind of out-of-the-box tools. Then we asked the follow-up question, who has built an agent or automated a process fully with a piece of AI in their business? 39 people put their hands down. One person had their hand up. And it's interesting because there's so much fear in the world of business around, I am behind. You wake up, you see that piece of news, it's kind of treading on your toes in your industry, and you go, oh God, is it going to wipe out how I earn money? I think an awful lot of people have the impression that everyone else around the table has got pocket aces. No one
has
around that table really does. Very few companies do. They are experimenting. MIT released a recent report, which is interesting, where in the companies they analyzed, they had a 90% failure rate on their AI initiatives because they're throwing AI on things that
don't need it
and are really hard to do.
So you can go on the simple stuff, which I think brings me on to my next question then. If notionally, on the surface, people are at least getting less frightened of simple tools like ChatGPT, which is really just replacing Google in some ways for some people. It's that next level down now. We're starting to break through the initial fear. People are allowed to use Copilot a lot more where people, if they're in Microsoft House. But that next level, creating an agent, doing something a bit more out there, doing the vibe coding thing. So what tips would you give to, bearing in mind our listeners are owners and managers of small and medium-sized businesses, and they want to do this. What tips would you give them to at least get that first bit of momentum going beyond the use of ChatGPT to write an email? Yeah,
so this is where they will hear a lot of conversation this year around the world of agents. It's agents are here and agents are going to do everything.
Yeah, you can now get that ChatGPT's built in, can't you, for their normal
Pro
subscription?
And this will only continue. And what does this actually mean? Because I think language is important. An agent really is a large language model, which is only a thin slice of the AI world, but it's the slice that we've got a lot of attention on right now. It is a large language model with access to tools. It is a large language model that can search the web for you and pull back more relevant results. Or it could search through your HubSpot CRM and pull out the 10 most likely companies to buy this product or service, let's say. And it is a step change in capability. You think of humanity when we invent fire, the wheel, the spear, the bow, like the capabilities that gives us as a society. That's the same thing for AI. It is breaking AI out of the box, allowing it to do meaningful work. And I think what I would say, entrepreneurs, visionaries, business leaders, we have a lot of big ideas. We get very excited about things, and we want to do the very complex, large transformational projects right off the bat. But you've got to build your competency. You've got to get your organization comfortable with AI. You've got to see the teething issues. You definitely probably don't have the infrastructure in place that you're going to need to do this. So start very small. Go and interview those key team members. Look at their KPIs, look at their OKRs. What is getting in the way of them achieving that? And what you'll find is very small, very simple projects that you could do in a week.
So start small, deliberately.
Start so small. Don't bet the farm on one AI project. We talk about the 12 AI agents experiments framework.
Right.
And it's what's the 12 small, fast, cheap experiments you could run that would get you a return on investment and allow you to reinvest that uplift in your profitability into the more complicated
that's
projects.
quite a tricky discipline.
It's very
to get
hard.
people to recognize the gain and then be prepared to invest it back in again.
Yes, it is nice when the bank account is overflowing with some extra profit. But you can start this agentic flywheel, and I think the businesses that do reflect that uplift back onto their business will start to.
But okay, here's the challenge then. So I use a product called Fixer. I don't know if you've heard about it.
Yep.
It does the triaging of my inbox. It's great if anybody's out there. I'm not recommending them. Others exist, but it's great for me. It works. So it puts all the emails in the right folders and it drafts the responses for me for anything that needs a response. And 5 times out of 10, I can just hit send. It does it. And the others I edit and send. Great, brilliant. Every week it sends me an email with an estimate of how much time it's saved me. And it's never less than 3 or 4 hours a week, often more than 5, which is an hour a day, which is on their website as one of their bold claims. Sometimes it's 7 or 8. I don't disagree with it. I think it's quite possible that it is saving me that amount of time. The question I've got is, A, would I have been able to do the things that I've then been able to do anyway, or would they have just fallen off my list, my to-do list? Or have I just done even more stuff? I've got more stuff done, but it's more of the same sort of stuff. I've got through more emails. I've responded more quickly. Harder to measure that. I still feel as busy as I ever was. I'm not down to a 4-day week yet. And yet it's apparently saved me sometimes 8 hours a week. So why not? So do you think people have a blind spot in recognizing the benefits that these tools bring just because we're all so busy?
Well, I think it's a very good example, right? Because a vacuum seeks to be filled. So you clear up time and space, and that will be filled with whatever can be filled. It will slide in there if you're being intentional and saying, okay, what's the next leverage task, like the higher leverage task that I can focus on? That's an interesting question, but it does require intentionality. And I think people do have a blind spot. Like today. This week, we've just completed a project. This is 2 weeks of development for a sustainability consultancy. And if you've ever been in the world of kind of ESG investments and you happen to have your carbon output of your business, they do the first year in this spend analysis. So we just say, give us everything you've ever spent money on this year. We're going to go through line by line. We're going to give it a category. We're going to give it a label, and then we're going to run some clever calculations, and we're going to say this is probably your carbon output, a reasonable way to estimate that. And this business that we've worked with pays many consultants to do this. It takes probably 2 to 3 days to do that analysis per business. And it was only because they had a wave of new projects, and she was like, I can't hire fast enough to do this.
Right, yeah.
Let's talk to Lee about AI agents. Within a week, I'd done the prototype and we run the test. I have someone in our business called Agnes who's much more detail focused than I am. She gets really into the weeds of like spreadsheet testing. I was like, I wonder what the accuracy is. First pass was 75% accuracy. And we were going to like, okay, now the engineering is how do we get this to like 95%? And the owner was like, no, 75% is great because that just frees up a huge bottleneck. Right. I'm paying these consultants £40 an hour.
I wonder how accurate they were being.
Well, this is a very interesting, like when we're looking at the spreadsheet data, we look because we have the tests. We know what they rated their particular that particular line item as our kind of benchmark. Sometimes I look at the AI output and I say, I don't know. I think the AI, it feels more right. I'm not one of these consultants, right? And myself and Agnes was having this conversation. She was like, well, how do we know when the AI has been better than the human? There was an interesting moment the other day where, again, big sustainability consultancy that do the BREEAM assessments, if you've ever been involved in a big building, thousands of pages of documents. And we had ingested all of these in a vector database. And I said, we can search any document about this building of the thousands you've got. Give me something. I typed it in. And they had forgotten, because the start of the project was 4 years ago, they had forgotten that their director had been named the BREEAM, the champion of this project. And I was like, is that a hallucination? He was like, I think that might be a hallucination. He looked it up. He went, oh my God.
It's actually true.
It's true.
Yeah. This is where you got to double check the humans, not just double check the AI.
Humans make mistakes, right? We're not infallible.
Well, and I think that's where they talk about medical diagnosis, don't they? Where sometimes AI is better at detecting low-level cancers than doctors. And I was using this the other day because we have a client where all of their calls are recorded and they're obviously all announced on the call and transcription and all that, but they've just sat there dormant and they're, for training and quality purposes, whatever that means, never read again. But I used the AI thing, it's all built into HubSpot, and just said, give me every reference there's been to a premium price for an expedited delivery and create a table of all the different ways we've presented that for the clients. And it was fascinating. It came up with all these different people that have come up with their own way of coming up with a price premium for expediting the delivery. You feed that back to the company and they couldn't believe it. They go back and check it and it's true. So they think they've got these processes that everybody's adhering to, but actually sometimes the data speaks for itself, even when AI does have a hallucination problem sometimes.
And I think there is a fear around the hallucination issue. It's a feature, not a bug. It's not something you've got to work with it. It's how it does it. But in many ways, humans hallucinate content. Where did that idea that you just had in the shower this morning that's going to add £1 million of revenue to your business come from? I don't know.
Yeah, that spreadsheet that's one day Rodney will all be millionaires. So you talked a bit about starting small then, and you've also talked before about running AI experiments as a way of giving people just a bit more creativity, I suppose, and ideas. So how would you, in a company that's still at the beginning of this journey, how would you structure something that's helping them to come up with experiments to think of the right thing to do?
I think something I learned from my user experience days, people are experts in their problems. They're not experts in the solutions to their problems, which is great for us as business owners.
There's a soundbite that will definitely make it onto YouTube. Yeah.
Because you always get the argument in innovation. It's the Henry Ford quote, which I don't think he actually ever said, of if I asked my customers what they want, they would have said faster horses, right? Yeah. So people say you should never ask your customers what they want. And it's like, well, yeah, obviously. We ask them about their problems. We decide how to serve and solve that. When you lift this lid in your business, if you have a genuine what we call problem scouting session, which is, let's talk to the senior leadership team. What's driving their mental? Where are the constraints in the business? Now, let's go and get the ground truth, because what we think as the leadership team, as soon as you get past that 5, 10, 15 people,
that's been filtered and Chinese whispered and all sorts.
Exactly, right. Now let's go and do some half-hour conversations. Be careful with who you assign to do this, because having the CEO do it has some...
that will lead the witness.
Yeah, exactly, right. But if you can conduct these interviews and talk to them about their roles, and you ask them this question of what are you doing when you are being most impactful? What gets in the way of that? And you talk to them about the issues with that, they will divulge to you problems in your process, lacking infrastructure or products that you could maybe buy, right? Because it is a case of buy or build. It's not, you're not always
Have they been teed up for the fact that you're looking for possible AI projects so that they start tailoring what they say, or do you tend to not even declare why you're asking the question?
We just say we're doing an analysis of
it's like a
tooling.
Business analyst type job.
Exactly. Because you have to, I mean, this is an art, right? I don't want to make people scared around doing this, because having the conversation is better than not having the conversation. There are ways to have a very good conversation, which is, how do you ask great questions? What, where, when, why, how? Don't say leading things, but actually ask questions. And as my primary school teacher always used to say to me, Lee, you've got 2 ears, 1 mouth for a reason. Use them in that ratio, which I struggle with. But we did this recently with a business, and we came up with 70 candidate projects. That does not mean you immediately run and go, right, now let's do 70 agents. Like,
it's a good list to choose from, though, right?
It's a good list to choose
Target-rich environment.
Yeah. And actually, there'll be a couple there that are good candidates.
Yeah.
And
Did they jump out?
They really jump out because what we're looking for in the start with the candidate projects is what is small, self-contained. It doesn't need necessarily giant infrastructure changes to complete. It doesn't need us to get permission from 5 different stakeholders within the business.
And within commonly available tools, I'm thinking Copilot or
exactly that.
AI.
Yeah, we don't want to start at the level of, let's create a custom land graph coded agent and we're going to have to set up all this host. That's going to give us more power. But right now we're solving small problems. Yeah. Because when you do that in the business, you start to build the culture of, what we're really doing is viewing a business as the machine. It's the machine that takes attention in at the top, solves a problem, and hopefully piles cash out at the bottom. You can get your team on side because there's a fear, right? If you just burst in the door after having listened to the latest Diary of a CEO podcast or whatever about AI agents.
Trust me, I'm an AI expert. I'm going to solve all your problems. Everyone runs for the
Everyone goes, oh, you're trying to replace me? How am I going to pay my mortgage? You get resistance and you get people digging their heels in. But if you actually help them come up with the ideas and direct where you're applying AI so it's helping them and you're very clear with that, actually you start to build a culture where people will pro-offer, I've got an idea for this. You can go slightly too far with this. We're working with a business at the minute that went all in. They went to Lisbon, they did their strategy day. Their CEO started the presentation with a tombstone, said, if we do not adopt AI, this is our company in 2 years. I'd say it's a bit hyperbolic, but they all then went like a herd of cats and everyone was creating AI agents, hacking this, all different products. We're now having to do a big project to kind of bring that all in and say, you've spun up 5 different databases.
Almost a nice problem to have, but that's less common than the other, which is where people are more worried about losing their jobs or doing the wrong thing, releasing confidential client data out perhaps, or somehow destroying the company because it's all gone haywire, or they've taught the language models of the future based on their data. There's all these fears that are around, aren't there?
There are, and you mentioned destroying the company in vibe coding. He didn't manage to destroy his own company quite, but Jason Lemkin of SaaStr has been kind of live tweeting. Do we still call it tweeting? But live.
You can't say X.
God damn it. He's been kind of building in public with vibe coding. He's non-technical, but he's been involved in very technical companies for a long time. He was using Replit and managed to delete irrevocably 4,000 customer records from their CRM. That is a massive damaging thing
I must have heard that story a dozen times now. Everyone keeps telling me about it.
It's crazy.
Did you see that thing about Replit where it deleted the data? Well, there's so many questions that arise from that. How on earth did you put yourself in that position? What about basic, backups and normal disciplines that you do?
That's the big question.
But what on earth are you doing giving it? It's so many questions. But you're right. It is possible if you do the wrong thing. But on the whole, you can't break the internet. Maybe you could break your company, but be sensible. It's not there to look after you. It's there to do what you tell it to do. And if you tell it to do the wrong thing or give it freedom to, then it will.
Yes, and I think this is something to consider with AI in general. And this is why I actually think I'm not afraid of AI destroying humanity or destroying the economy, because AI is ultimately congruent to your request, because actually it doesn't have a self-drive, right? It would sit there and do nothing unless you prompt it. Yeah. And when you prompt it, it will do its best to achieve your goal in the way that it's been trained.
Well, that's the way they've been trained to do.
Yeah, you can have them be very incongruent, right? Yeah. But the models that most people, 99% of people have access to are like that. And I think that gives a huge opportunity to anyone who runs a business when you realize that actually being incongruent with your clients, being the truth sayer, is going to become a more and more valuable skill set.
I can already see the messages coming in from my clients who will say, hang on, you've already done that for the last 20 years you've been working with us.
But good advisors are not congruent. That's why people value
you can't be
them.
the echo chamber or the mirror, can you? But,
No.
and that is, I think, where AI is helping a lot because it's getting you to see a different point of view. They do tend to be a bit sycophantic in the chatty stuff, but it's not just about the chat stuff. It's the actions as well. I could get in my vibe coding experiment this feedback that says, that's a great idea for an improvement to the product. That's really going to enhance the user experience. Great, let's crack on with that. You could cut that bit out for me. I'm not, just...
Yeah.
But I have learned that rather than just saying, can you now make this change? I ask it, if I were to ask you to make this change, A, how would you go about it? And B, what problems can you see with it? And can you recommend a better way of doing it? So you have the conversation first. And only when you've almost agreed with this mythical, agenty thing, that, that sounds sensible now, that's the route we're going to go down. Then you turn off the guardrails and say, right, now do that. But up until that point, it can't do anything. All you're doing is chatting to it about how it will do it.
I think that's a great way of working with AI. I think most people are far too lazy to work with AI in that way. Because and I've fallen myself into this trap. I remember, must have been 2 years ago now. I was sat in Cyprus. We were looking for a React developer for a startup that I was a co-founder of. It's like, I'm pretty sure I could vibe code some React.js, like a prototype of this.
You've lost half the audience, or probably 99% of the audience there. But let's say some software.
Yeah, some software, right? It was a piece of UI that we really wanted to build.
Which is user interface. I'm going to help the audience out a bit here.
And I got into you have this moment with any AI where you have to be very careful with what you ask it to do. And there is a way of working with AI.
Is that not a lesson in life, though? Careful what you wish for, right?
It is. Go back to the research conversation we had. If you actually treat your prompts with AI in the same way of like, I'm going to be careful with what I ask you because I'm going to lead you to a conclusion. So, instead of saying, is this a good idea? Yes, it's a good idea. You say, which of these two ideas would you advise me to consider? Because actually it's being congruent with your request and it's not married to either of those two ideas. So there is a way of working
learn
with
techniques, don't you? I think as humans, some people even have a management style where they will ask for something maybe deliberately outrageous to take somebody to a place that they wouldn't normally be to push you back again, hoping that the medium is right. You don't get that with AI. They will just... if you ask them to do something, they'll go there. So I've even, a technique I picked up from someone else I've tried recently as well. I ask it a number of things to improve, blah, 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 in my discussion mode, right, we're going to do that. Then I say to it, what's the next thing I'm going to ask you?
Ooh,
and it comes back with, well, the way this has gone so far, it sounds like you're going to say this, that, and the other. And I say, yeah, great, do that then, without even filtering it.
I'm going to go try that tonight. That'll be my evening.
But I think these little techniques, you've got to treat it as very loyal, very compliant, and very powerful, very all-knowing, but not necessarily as critical a thinker as you are. So you need to help it to do the critical thinking bit.
Yeah, that's humanity's power. Like we discount how incredible the human brain is.
Yeah.
The way we can hold context. I don't need the whole context of a code base in my head to be able to fix one bug.
Yeah.
AI, because of the way it works, kind of does in many ways. We can be non-congruent. We can plan, successfully. We have common sense. AI doesn't have.
Yeah. Well, it's tempting to say not yet, and there would be some of these things that it will never get. This AGI, general intelligence mission that we're on.
When we get that, that's all bets are off. At that point, my future predictions are that whole point about no jobs and being destroyed.
We can't predict exponential curves, right? So I know we're running out of time, but I wanted to make sure we cover the topic of some successes and failures. There's no doubt you've got a lot of experience of hopefully more successes than failures, but the whole point of the journey we're on and the nature of the experimentation process you take is that there's going to be some flops as well, right? So how can we all learn from yours and other people's experiments that maybe didn't work out? What perhaps is a good guide?
I think where I have seen the biggest failures in these projects is usually right at the start when we're scoping these projects. We call them the God models. We're listing out for the idea of the God model. The God model is, let's create one AI that's going to take over this whole department and do everything that department does inside of one agent or one setup.
That one massive process map has been built into a machine.
And it's interesting you say process maps, right? Because people think this is the first time we've had a big AI revolution in the economy, but actually we had I think it was Lisp machines, the
wow,
knowledge workers. I wasn't born at this point. But we had knowledge workers. What was the problem with knowledge workers? That worked on a rule-based system of if I could define as a rule the job in totality, we would have a system that could run all the rules and do the job of whoever we've
it was less
replaced.
AI, but still automating based on rules.
Yeah, right. So the issue with the God models is it's the same mindset, because the prompt has to get ever more complex. And if you really analyze what your best team members are doing in those departments, they go so far outside the remit of the job spec that you've given them, because there are undocumented processes, there's those edge cases. Humans are absolutely incredible at dealing with completely new, never seen before scenarios and handling it, right? We could have an alien spaceship land in the middle of Shrewsbury, right? And we might be very shocked, but we'd come up with a plan
Especially
pretty quickly.
Shrewsbury, yeah.
Right. We'd come up with a plan pretty quickly, and
We'd probably have a few letters of complaint about how messy things are.
Yeah.
Making a bit too much noise, I think.
An AI would go, never seen this in my training data before, don't know what to do.
And just fall over,
So avoid the God model. You're looking for small, self-contained things. Build competency, start small. You might end up building something that can run as a department, but it will not be one, as at the time of this recording with the technology we have.
Can you give a suggestion then of something that may be more generically applicable that we can suggest to people to give a go?
I think something that nearly every company can do is looking at your sales process and looking at what's called the unstructured data that generates. Okay, the unstructured data being that doesn't fit necessarily neatly into your rows and columns of your database. Yeah, right. Nearly every sales process, you could generate emails and transcripts and call recordings and these kind of things. That now in the world of AI has huge value, because you can try to say, well, how about we personalize our proposal process? And we're going to use the unstructured data so that we're not sending out the same generic proposal. We're going to create a one of one.
Yep.
And we're going to do that. And we're going to see what does that do to the response rate? What does that do to the close rate off the back of that?
Yeah, I like that.
And
so just trying to put that into practice then, you've maybe got something that looks like your template or your normal approach to proposal, but you then feed your AI with all of the conversations, meetings, emails that you've currently had with that prospect. And then you say, adopt the tone, the language, the style, everything else that is relevant for them in their world, and tailor my proposal to talk the way they talk.
Yeah, and if you're doing this really, really in a way that's going to be successful in an enterprise environment, right? AI really is a reliability problem. The capabilities are very easy to pilot, but doing it reliably again and again and again is difficult. If you want to up your reliability, you don't say, here's the front page of the proposal, use all of the information we've got and wing it. Right? Because AI is like your most brilliant employee that turns up drunk 95% of the time, right? Sometimes 5%
I heard you say that quote before. I've repeated it several times.
Good. Instead, what would be smarter would be, in the first line, you might have some boilerplate text. And inside of that text, you'd have two double brackets, curly brackets. And that indicates to the AI, hey, you can replace this with your own content. And inside those double brackets, you'll have a mini prompt that would say, pull out the two biggest pain points that we have based in all of this.
So you don't give it completely carte blanche. You've given it the guardrails again.
AI is about restraint. It would infinitely hallucinate content if we allowed it to. The real usage of AI is all about locking it down, constraining it just enough, not too much. We still want it to be creative, but it needs the SOP.
Yeah.
It needs the rules. It needs the output format. And all of you listening to this would have much better AI output if you did a couple of things. You give it templates to fill out so that you are saying, I want it in this structure. You give it very clear directions. Most people say, write me a report. And then they go, that's not very good.
Yeah.
Say, write me a report with an introduction, this section, this section, this section, 500 characters long, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And adopt the persona of someone who has expertise in this or an attitude of that.
Exactly that. And give it clear templates to work with so that you get consistency.
Well, you can always iterate even from there. You've really given that a very tight set of guardrails, but you could then feed it its own finished output and ask it, how would you improve this? You don't have to agree with it.
Yep.
What would you change on here? Or if you had the persona of all those people that we've met and you've got all that records, how do you think they would respond to this?
We did this this week. We're launching these 17 agents, and they help business owners create these assets like their elevator pitch, their what's called their value canvas. How do you do what you do, etc. And I wasn't really feeling the output of the ICP asset
Ideal
that we
customer
get.
profile. Yeah.
Yes. Sorry. Too
It's
much.
all right, that's what I'm here for.
And the AI came up with a great thing. So what about if we put a golden insight at the end? They didn't ask for this, but what about if we use everything we know about their customer and we say, here's something you might not realize about the products and services they really wish people knew. And we've run this with a couple of people and they're like, wow, that's absolutely amazing. Like, I've loved using this. You've given me a light bulb moment. And it's given me an interesting insight that I think great AI interactions is almost like tea leaf reading, right? If
you just let people have their innermost thoughts come out.
Exactly. Let it be vague enough sometimes with your output that they can apply their own context to it and they go, wow, you really understood.
Well, that works. That's a psychological phenomenon, right? We just give people permission to be creative more.
Exactly.
That's a good tip. I like that.
It's fascinating to me, and this is the benefit of agents. Doing that inside of ChatGPT and copy and pasting your prompts and being disciplined like that is really, really hard work. When you work with AI agents, with platforms that control that interaction very tightly, that happens every time. Yeah. And you're getting the most bang for your buck when you work with AI in that way.
Brilliant. Look, Lee, we could talk for hours on this, and we have already, actually, but offline. We're not subjecting our listeners to all of that. But thank you very much for your insights. Sounds really interesting. I know that we're going to carry on following each other's efforts in this area to gradually convert the world one SME at a time.
Absolutely.
Until they're all doing something. And in a couple of years' time, they'll wonder what all the fuss was about, because they'll all be doing it. So it's just an in-the-moment thing, isn't it?
It is. We're in the trend, and I think it will be okay. It will disrupt everything, but there will be opportunity on the other side of it.
Yeah, good. Well, thank you very much for those closing thoughts as well. And thanks for coming to Shrewsbury with no aliens to come and record the podcast. Yeah, no excitement today. And thank you as well for listening to another episode of the SME Growth Podcast from Wellmeadow. And no doubt that today's episode may well have triggered a few thoughts and questions, so please send them in. You know how to get in touch with us, or you can just go to the Wellmeadow website or even the SMEgrowthpodcast.com website and drop your comments in there and we'll pass them on to Lee and maybe get some feedback for you. So thanks again for listening and good luck with your business.